Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. In today's program, we will be talking about the latest developments surrounding Pakistan's economy, and that is going to shape Pakistan's economic future. And of course, it's a regional economic cooperation as well. Of course, we will be talking about the historic and breakthrough agreement, preliminary agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries. This is the first time that any of the countries has this FTA agreement with GCC countries in the last 14 years. We will be talking about the potential it holds for Pakistan and its relations with GCC countries. We will also be talking about its impact on SIFC and how this is going to influence export-oriented strategy of SIFC as well. When we talk about GCC countries, of course, this comprises of around 6 countries, and it is a huge market that has export potential of around $1 trillion. And when we talk about the imports, that is around potential is around $550 billion. But Pakistan's share in this import volume is just $19 billion. We will be talking about what it means after FTA agreement, how this is going to impact Pakistan's economy, and what would be some of the potential challenges that Pakistan needs to address when we talk about this breakthrough agreement. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by economist and senior analyst Dr. Khalid Waleed. Welcome to the program. We are also joined by Mr. Shehryar Khan, who is expert in international affairs and senior analyst. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Dr. Hussain Javed, who is economist and expert in international affairs. Welcome to the program. Of course, Dr. Khalid, let me start with you. Can you tell us about the significance of this FTA agreement of Pakistan with GCC countries, and what are objectives of this preliminary agreement, and also the timeline it holds when we talk about its implementation?
Well, thank you so much for the invite and important topic in context of Pakistan's economy. Just to set the context or background, Pakistan's economy has 3 fundamental flaws in it. First is that we have this population boom uncontrolled. Second is that we have very unsustainable kind of import-export trade deficit going on. And third is that there is I would say natural resources endowed in such a way that we are an energy deficient country, and it is directly linked with this FTA agreement, because most of the imports in terms of energy comes from the Middle Eastern countries. We need to find something to offset the impact of those imports coming into Pakistan, and we can replace them with exports to those countries so that our trade deficit is contained. So one way to do is that we promote this export-oriented industry and promote our exports to the Middle Eastern countries. You have rightly mentioned that there is huge potential of exports, and we are not catering that potential. Just to give you some numbers, in terms of export, UAE is the top country, which has, I would say, annually $1.2 billion exports from Pakistan, which is very low. Apart from UAE, there is no Middle Eastern countries which crosses $1 billion mark in terms of exports. But in terms of imports, there is a huge imports coming into Pakistan in terms of oil, in terms of fossil fuels. Our economy is based on fossil fuel economy, I would say imported oil. So that is imperative for Pakistan, so that we can have this offsetting mechanism in terms of whatever mean necessary, FTAs, other agreements, SIFC, helping us in terms of boosting our exports. Second thing is that in order to measure the significance of this phenomena or this agreement, there are two main tools through which we can contain our trade deficits. First one is import substitution. Second is that export-led growth. Import substitution is a very long-term phenomena. You need to develop industries, you need to have this supply chain mechanism coming into your economy. But the second option, that is the export-led growth, that is a very viable short to medium term effort that can Pakistan make, and this FTA would be a very catalyst sort of thing in terms of boosting our export-based economy. So in terms of maintaining or reducing our trade deficit, this agreement can be a very potential game changer for Pakistan.
Of course, this has the potential to be a game changer for Pakistan's economic landscape as well. But Mr. Shahyar, can you tell us about some of the key provisions of this preliminary FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries, and also how Pakistan's individual relations or bilateral relations with each of these 6 countries are going to be impacting the trade volume between these countries?
So Mariam, this agreement is significant in the sense that since 2009, this is the first time the GCC has done this free trade agreement with any country. And Saudi Arabia was very significant in getting this FTA through. So now, according to some numbers, Pakistan's trade with the GCC is expected to increase by 50%. So this is a huge market that Pakistan has a potential to tap. And just to give you a few numbers, that all of these GCC countries combined have a GDP of around $1.4 trillion. And they have a population of around about 60 million people. So this is a huge market and a potential for Pakistan to basically increase the exports. So right now, what is Pakistan exporting? So we know the kind of imports we get from the GCC. It's mainly oil and some petrochemicals that Pakistan imports. Round about on average, they're like around $19 billion.
Yes.
And with Pakistan's growing economy and the growing population, this import is expected to increase with time. When it comes to exports, Pakistan's major exports are rice, then meat and carcasses. Other than that, some petrochemical oils, fruits and vegetables. So this is like the more or less our key exports that are going to the GCC countries. Now, one of the key challenges that Pakistan faces when it comes to increasing these exports is Pakistan's agricultural base. We have the lowest per acre yield in the region. And a lot of times when we have to export basmati rice or even fruits to the GCC countries, the problems arise in our supply chains. So when Pakistan, we've like discussed in various programs, is one of the most affected countries when it comes to climate change. Other than the fact that we have a very low per acre yield, most of the times floods and natural phenomena destroy most of our crops as well. And even one of the largest exporters of Pakistan when it comes to these commodities, they face severe issues when it comes to fulfilling the orders that we get from the GCC countries. Other than that, quality standards. International quality standards are very important, and there's a very strict regime in
and we keep
GCC
on
countries.
Pointing this out in
various programs we've discussed
yes.
this. Other than that, we also need very robust trade dispute mechanisms to settle the disputes that arise when our exports or when there are any concerns from the GCC in terms
of course. All right. So let's talk about some of the sectors that are expected to be benefited after the implementation of this FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries.
Well, in terms of exporting sectors, rightly mentioned by Shahryar Saab that there are rice exports and there are textile imports and so on and so forth. What we need to do is, or what Pakistan is required to boost their exports is that we not only focus on raw materials, but we focus on finished goods as well. That would have, I would say, a complementary effect as well, which will not only increase our exports, but also will boost our industry in the country as well. What are different potential sectors? We can have these textile and I would say ready-made clothes in terms of finished goods and providing the technical and technological assistance, or I would say capital intensive products, so that we have getting more and more foreign exchange in return of our exporting countries. We are exporting.
Dr. Khalid, these are very traditional sectors that you are pointing out. Are there some of the sectors that are maybe non-traditional that have potential to be boosted after the implementation of this FTA agreement?
Well, I would say that Pakistan is obviously exporting traditional goods. We need to diversify our portfolio in terms of exporting goods. We can look into, I would say, IT sector, into mining sector, other sort of thing. One report has quoted that the future is renewable energy, so we would be requiring more and more renewable energy critical minerals like cobalt and lithium and other sort of things. So we can potentially look into that as well, and potentially exporting those minerals to those countries. SIFC has mandated that we need to modernize our mining sector through the involvement of Middle East, so that we can boost their renewable energy transition as well. That could be a game changer for both regions, for MENA region, for the Pakistan region, for the Middle East as well, so that we can have this export boosting, and at the same time we are converging towards renewable energy supplies as well. So this is one of the non-traditional thing we need to look into. That would be the critical minerals that are required for, I would say, electric vehicles, batteries, wind power, solar power, and that would be, I would say, it's a huge sector, and it's the futuristic sector as well. If we invest in today, when the time comes, I would say 10 to 20 years, this sector would be mature enough, and we would be having more and more capabilities to dig further into this sector, and I would say reap the benefits out of this, I would say, emerging sector.
Of course, reap the benefits of this emerging sector when we talk about these non-traditional sectors as well. But Dr. Hassan, when we talk about Pakistan's exports, can you tell us about implications on Pakistani exports, especially when we talk about in terms of market access and tariff reductions?
Yes, that's very important question. Like if I talk about the GCC is the market of around 1 trillion in export and the 550 billion in import. So the Pakistan shares and in imports from it was 19 billion on average, as it was importing energy and petrochemical products, while the export share was about the 2.5 billion of the dollar. So the GC had combined GDP of the approximately 1.4 trillion, where the Saudi Arabia and the UAE contributed 49.4 and the 25.3% respectively to the bloc of the GDP in 2020. So the GCC countries had a total population of 58.7 million, with the Saudi Arabian UAE constituted of 59.3 and the 16.9% respectively, the total population of this province in the same year. But if I talk about the trade data, the Pakistan export to the GCC increased by the US 483.3 million, while it is import from the GCC fell US dollar in about 4.5 billion in the 2017 and 20. So the Pakistan overall trade deficit in service with the GCC has increased from 1.1 billion, which is very important to be a taper on, which is under the SIFC program we are going to have it. The Pakistan export of the services the GCC were used worth about the 886.6 million, while the import of the service from GCC were worth 2.1 billion. So the Pakistan challenge in the trade with the GCC, there is a number of the hurdles in the trade investment between the Pakistan and GCC countries. The most Pakistani exporter of the agriculture product are not growers themselves, with the restricted abilities of influence their supply chain both backward as well as of the forward. There is no proper mechanism, but the most important thing is the barrier undercoming and the free trade agreement between the GCC. It is the mind-blowing and it is the one of the finest move by the Pakistan, and that would be happen very soon.
Indeed, this is historic, Dr. Stan, when we talk about this agreement. But can you tell us about the timeline of implementation of this agreement?
Yeah, as far as the timeline is concerned, there are few hurdles, and those few hurdles under the preliminary stage. Right after preliminary stage, it will be rather boost in the period of the 4 months, maybe 120 days or 90 days. It will be cover, and we will cover all the deadline and all the needed things. But the hurdles are so many, so we need to reduce down all the bureaucratic hurdles, and we are now moving on to the right track. So 90 days after the preliminary.
Dr. Hassan, let's talk about these challenges and what Pakistan needs to do to address these challenges.
Under the SIFC, we already, undermine all these hurdles. Most probably, like for example, in June, Pakistan established Special Investment Facilitation Council to foreign direct investment in the country, particularly from the Gulf nation. One, that was one of the most prior hurdle, which is the bureaucratic hurdle. So they have removed the bureaucratic hurdle. Secondly, the council identified agriculture, defense, production, energy, information technology, mining as of the 5 sectors would we prioritize as a country look to recover from the economic crisis and wide trade deficit. The trade deficit is the most problematic area now, just because of the SIFC and special focus of the General Asim Munir Saab. He has given the right boost to the economy. And then, is according to the official, there are a lot of the MOU and agreement which are in the work, which has not been finalized. So now the SIFC given the right planning and the dead time and the deadlines. So deadlines are under the 90 days. So I am very much hopeful that the FTA agreement under the meeting of the Apex meeting on the SIFC, the Minister of Commerce said the caretaker government was committed to boosting export up to 32 billion. It was the major hurdle between the whole of the process, which is the bureaucratic hurdle. Out of the bureaucratic hurdle, there is a 1 unit, and 1 unit goes to the GCC, and GCC only contact with the 1 unit of the Pakistan from the free trade agreement. If the free trade agreement happens to be very soon, in the 90 days, most probably under the SIFC, I think the delegation of the GIC company move very fast within this month. If it goes very fast in this way, then the free trade agreement happens, and then we don't need the bilateral trade agreement under these circumstances. So then, in that case, the 32 billion will be dispersed. So the export-oriented strategy would be provide energy on the prioritized basis, and that will also give us a boost in the winter, so that our industrial zone,
energy
our
shortages, of course, catered.
Energy sector under the energy corporation, and most importantly, the agriculture sector will be enhanced under the FTA.
Right, of course, this is significant, Mr. Shehjar, when we talk about Pakistan's economic landscape. But let's talk about the geopolitical implications of this FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries, keeping in mind Pakistan's strategic location. And of course, there are other competitions in the region when we talk about Bangladesh as well as India. So how significant is this?
So this trade agreement definitely is very significant, even if you look at it from the geopolitical angle. One very key point when it comes to GCC countries is that most of the GCC countries, especially UAE, they're very food insecure.
Right.
So they don't have the capacity or the land geological capacity to develop their crops or food security. What especially GCC countries, in particular UAE, what they're basically doing is now they're like looking at developing countries which have like a large land mass and irrigation facilities, and they're trying to outsource their agricultural production to those countries. And then they would like import all that agricultural produce to their countries, and then basically make finished products or value added products in their country, and they will cater to their food security needs, and they also plan to export it to other markets as well. They have been doing that when it comes to meat and animal carcasses. They are doing it when it comes to basmati rice. They're also doing it when it comes to other fruits and vegetables. So Pakistan has this opportunity, and under the SIFC that we have been discussing, there is a major component that basically looks at agricultural production and large scale corporate farming. So that is like one area where Pakistan and UAE especially, and even Saudi Arabia as well, can cooperate, and that segment or that sector can attract significant investments from the UAE and Saudi Arabia. One other factor that you basically rightly pointed out was the competition that Pakistan gets from Bangladesh and India. Right now, importing basmati rice from Pakistan to GCC is $100 per metric ton more expensive as compared to India. So the supply chain issues, licensing issues, even though Pakistan is closer when it comes to geographical proximity,
right,
even then it's like much cheaper to import that from India. Has someone in Pakistan conducted an analysis on why this disparity is there? And what are the ways in which we can reduce this disparity? How can we make this cost effective for the GCC countries to basically focus more on Pakistan when it comes to basmati rice production at least? So there
Do
are.
you think after SIFC, after the launch of SIFC, this is going to be something that they are going to be working on?
So when it comes to economics or mathematics, if we have a large volume of products that we have to export, in this case to GCC, the cost should, according to economic terms, come down. So that's like one logical idea that comes to
like
my mind.
Like one window operation is going to reduce the cost, and it
the
is going to
volume
be
or
cost
the
effective
production will increase. So the main idea behind corporate farming is to increase the per acre yield of our agricultural land and use like the latest technologies, latest machineries. For example, UAE tried using the drip irrigation system. So that's like one technology that you can get by from UAE, and if we basically employ and like do research in agricultural production, that is like one area in SIFC I see a lot of like potential.
Right, and
for
when
increasing.
we particularly talk about this FTA agreement, does it also focus on knowledge sharing and technology transfer as well?
Yep.
Okay,
It should.
let's
It
talk
should.
about that.
It should. I
Right.
mean, it is not the way. I would say a very traditional way that we just trade in commodities. We should trade in knowledge. We should trade in innovation, and we should trade in technology transfers as well. And this would, I would say, have a bilateral effect, and it would positively affect the both region. In terms of, I would say, some innovative kind of a non-traditional kind of trade, I would definitely want to add a aspect of carbon markets into the debate as well.
Right,
Carbon
sure.
market is one of the innovative idea in terms of carbon credits trade. We all know that Middle Eastern countries, they are heavily dependent on fossil fuels. The modern economy, they are more relying on modern means of energy. It means that if we want to offset your carbon emissions, those countries would be needing carbon offsetting mechanisms or cap and trade sort of things. EU has just introduced their carbon border adjustment mechanism, which means that all the imports and exports goes through those carbon emission accounting. In terms of that, Pakistan can provide Middle Eastern countries with carbon credits in terms of areas of land, in terms of forest regeneration, in terms of other sort of things, so that they can continue their fossil fuel trade with the rest of the world. That would be very phenomenal for that region as well, and that would benefit for Pakistan, beneficial for Pakistan in terms of, I would say, Pakistan's industries, Pakistan's energy sector, and Pakistan's economy overall, because in terms of energy imports, that take a very high toll on Pakistan's economy, importing, I would say, $30 billion of oil
Right.
or energy products. That is a very
And still we are
significant,
dealing with the shortages.
and there is no alternative for that.
Right.
We need to import those as well. So anything that offsets those imports in terms of exports, in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of capacity building, that would be a very phenomenal
So
for Pakistan.
are there some provisions regarding that at this point in time?
I think there is none. But as we go into maturity of this
And
agreement,
ethics
and that would
meetings
be
are conducted.
and that would be an arena that we need to focus on. And I am sure that SIFC's platform and other platform would be looking into it. Because this is a futuristic thing, and we need to have this debate going on these times, so that when the time comes, we are ahead
Ready, of
we are
course.
ready and ahead of
Yes.
other countries. Yeah.
Of course. Dr. Sen, of course, this FTA agreement provides a lot of potential and business-friendly environment for GCC investors in Pakistan. But let's talk about the opportunities or the potential opportunities it can create for Pakistani businesses to invest in GCC markets.
Yes, the most important question here is the FTA foreign FTA futures. So FTA will be represent the most comprehensive and contemporary trade agreement in the Pakistan has ever signed with any notion. So it will encompass not only the trade in the good, but also extend the trade service, including the digital trade, intellectual property rights, tourism, standards, and investments. So that is the greatest prospect for the Pakistan business community, and the Pakistan business community has the future with the FTA free trade agreement with the with the GCC countries. So if I talk about this holistic approach, is a promise to stimulate the economic growth and activity throughout the region, ultimately resulting in the job creation and enhanced standard of living for the people of Pakistan, and people of the both region. With the negotiation now successfully concluded, the internal process for the signing, rectification, and the swift implementation of the FTRs is set to commence, and the expedited approach aims to ensure that the both parties swiftly reap the benefit of the holistic agreement. The most important thing is the how we calculate the GCC market. So for the business community, there is a wonderful, trade agreement. Like for example, the GCC market, as I told you, around the 1 trillion. All of the business community must have to has this agreement onto the expediting way, as India is a major regional competitor of the GCC due to logistic advantage. We must compromise.
Right. Dr. Sen, there is some technical issue. We will be coming back to you, but let's talk about when we talk about, of course, this FTA agreement. This provides potential for Pakistani businesses to invest in GCC markets. What are some of the sectors in which Pakistanis can go and invest, and what kind of avenues does it open for Pakistani businesses in terms of when we talk about attracting foreign direct investment for Pakistan as well?
So Mariam, when it comes to the collective imports of the GCC countries, their annual imports are around about $500 billion. Most of that is food items, and then other imports mainly from Europe, and when it comes to other facilities. One thing that we need to discuss in detail would be the quality control standards that are required to get export licenses to GCC countries. And that is where I feel that Pakistan needs to do a lot more. First of all, as we discussed, that there is no dispute resolution mechanism between Pakistan and GCC when it comes to the quality control and quality check of Pakistani products, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to rice production, even meat exports as well.
So when we talk about individual countries as well, there is no mechanism,
there's no
despite
mechanism.
our excellent bilateral relations with all of the GCC members?
Yes, there is none, unfortunately. So when I was doing research on this FTA and the details, there is a dispute resolution organization there which has to be established, which is inactive right now, and that act is pending with the cabinet right now. So once that act is approved, then this organization will come into will become active and it will start working. So this will be a first step in developing mechanisms or I would say formats, and which are very necessary when it comes to increasing our exports to GCC. What we have to see is that the quality controls and quality checks to export even to the European Union market that we've discussed in various programs, as well as the GCC, the qualities are very high. All of these exports that we need to do, they have to come to those standards, and once that trust level is developed, then Pakistan can increase the volume of their exports to the GCC. Other than that, when it comes to testing facilities, there are not many, and the government hasn't really facilitated or incentivized the production of or the setting up of these testing facilities. So the testing facilities have to be very cost effective. So it's it makes economic sense for the producers to take advantage of these testing facilities before they export these items. Once those items are in transit and the quality check is done on the ports when in the GCC countries, then it's very difficult in terms of reputational damage if those products do not come to the standards that are required. So that is one area where Pakistan can start doing its homework right now, and once this FTA comes into full effect, then these small hitches and these technical difficulties that Pakistani producers face, that can be catered to in advance.
Of course, and when we talk about providing business-friendly environment to investors, what kind of incentives should Pakistan be planning to give to businesses in investing in Pakistan, and are there some layout or work already being done in that regard, especially when we talk about SEZs as well?
Well, that's a good question because we need to have production here in Pakistan in order to export that to Middle East. So what government needs to do, and government is rightly doing right now, is that we are promoting exporting industries, and under the SIFC we are facilitating a one window facility so that exporter have all kind of documentation available under one facility. This is one of the main hurdle in terms of, I would say, exporting to other countries. Second is that we need to capacity build or exporting industries so that they are exporting more finished products rather than exporting just the raw materials, which is not, I would say, Pakistan's major exports are raw materials, are not the finished goods, primary goods. So we need to have this capacity building of our industries. In terms of that, we can provide tax incentives. We can have these special economic zones linked with our reliable energy supplies so that they are not faced with curtailment of energy or load shedding of energy, because one of the major factor that industries get affected by is that there is no constant or reliable energy supplies to them. Our preferential sector is residential sector. So if we can have this bilateral sort of agreement with the Middle Eastern countries who can invest in our energy sector, linked with our industrial sectors or special economic zones, they can build dedicated power plants to those economic zones, producing industrial products or agricultural products that are required by Middle East. That would be a win-win situation for both the regions, Pakistan and Middle Eastern countries. So.
Right, of course. Dr. Hussain, when we talk about this important FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries, of course we know that Saudi Arabia played a significant role in facilitating and negotiating this FTA agreement. Are there some planned initiatives between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia beyond this FTA agreement when we talk about increasing the trade volume between both the countries?
Yes, that is very pertinent question. Actually, Pakistan is now a step up from the bilateral trade agreement to the FTA agreements. So free trade agreement is the different type of the economic side. I would say that the bilateral conditions, we are beyond the bilateral condition now. We are moving on to the free trade agreements. So where the recommendation for the GCC countries, we are into the free trade agreement rather the bilateral agreement. That is very much important. So under that case and under that scenario and under that situation, the export of the pharmaceutical product HS30, the medical device, sport goods, include football, agriculture product, textile. Saudi Arab is very much, willing to invest in these areas and also into the Balochistan area, which is also has been done. Of course, they are into the agreement. They are into the exploration of the minerals and mines, and they are already taken to the 25% of the involvement in the Balochistan for the exploration of the minerals and mines. So that is very much, promising thing by the Saudi Arabia, and I much appreciate the Saudi Arabian, promising attitude towards the Pakistan. Then is the Pakistan government should incentivize the developed testing of the center in Pakistan, where comprised tests can be performed in cost-effective manner, which will be improve the quality of the Pakistan product to match the international standard. And then under this agreement, of course, with the Saudi Arabia, Pakistani government is also must facilitate the export in the terms of promote, facilitate, and efficient customs clearance, which is very much important. Custom clearance, subsidized freight charges from the non-traditional products, and then Pakistan also needs to safeguard its local industry and ensure that avoiding indirect imports of the Chinese and Indian products via Dubai under the FTA. So FTA is most important. We must come out of the bilateral trade agreement and then come on to the free trade agreement, where whosoever under the GCC or the SIFC plan. So SIFC is the largest canvas. So largest canvas must have to operate under the FTA. So the government of Pakistan should strengthen the dispute resolution mechanism in Pakistan by making the trade dispute solution.
Touched upon that, right. But of course, this FTA agreement with GCC countries is very significant. But how does it impact the already existing partnerships with these GCC countries? Of course, we already had trade relations with all of these GCC members. What are some of the potential areas of synergies, and what are some potential areas of competition after the implementation of this agreement?
So, Mariam, Pakistan is a net importer of energy, and most of it comes from the GCC countries. When it comes to bilateral arrangements, outside the FTA that we've been discussing, Saudi Arabia is like one of the largest investors from the GCC countries into Pakistan, and there are like a lot of like discussions going on when it comes to setting up an oil refinery in Gwadar, and it's the Aramco, and right now that's like one area that is being discussed, and that's one of the GCC countries that is like investing. Other than that, when it comes to mines and minerals, Saudi Arabia is also in talks with the Pakistani government on getting on board with the Reko mine as well, and that's like also one of the discussions that are
right.
like
and
there
what
in
about
the
other GCC countries?
So when it comes to UAE, again, most of our imports are based on oil and gas. When it comes to exports, what Pakistan definitely needs to do is like move away from providing raw materials and like to move towards value-added products. When it comes to providing textile and cotton, Pakistan should move to developing brands. And now when we talk about developing brands, it's a long-term project, and it requires a lot of quality, it requires a lot of consistency. And when Pakistan can establish its brands in the Middle East, it's a market that's like very close to Pakistan. The private sector of Pakistan already has like a lot of like investments in GCC. When it comes to Pakistani businessmen, they have like a lot of investments again in Dubai and like Saudi Arabia as well. When it comes to developing brands, Pakistan has always lacked, and a short-sighted thinking of our exporters has been that as long as they keep on providing the raw materials to GCC countries and they can basically develop value-added products, their job is like done. That is like thinking that has to improve throughout the Pakistan's export sector. Obviously, developing brands takes time. It requires consistency, it requires quality.
Right.
But once that like standard has developed,
right.
a lot of brands can be made much cheaper in Pakistan, and Pakistan is already doing it for a lot of European brands
this
as
is
well.
a long-term plan, but when we talk about this significant development of FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries, how does it aligns with Pakistan's foreign policy in terms of Pakistan's relations and geopolitical developments that we are witnessing today? How does this impact or aligns with Pakistan's foreign policy objectives?
So, Mariam, Pakistan's key foreign policy
because like
push.
we keep on discussing that Pakistan has excellent relations with these GCC countries, but they did not somehow translated into the excellent economic relations, right?
So, Mariam, when it comes to Pakistan's foreign policy, when it comes to Pakistan's security policy, and when it also comes to Pakistan's regional policy, we keep on discussing that Pakistan is moving from the whole idea of geopolitics into geoeconomics. Geoeconomics, the whole idea of geoeconomics is to develop dependencies and economic integration, and as long as the economic integration is there, the room for conflict grows smaller. When countries are dependent on each other when it comes to economic needs, trade, transport, and export of like various goods, the countries become interdependent on each other. And that model is more effective when it comes to comparing it with more geopolitical or geo-strategic model. So that is what Pakistan wants to move towards, and for that we need to develop these linkages, especially from the GCC countries. Now historically, when we say we have excellent relations with the GCC countries, how have those relationships translated? When Pakistan is in an economic turmoil, whenever we need bailout funds, the GCC countries are the first ones to basically give those support to Pakistan. So that's how we have been using historically our good relations. None of the other countries basically come forward. So when it comes to providing oil on deferred payments, Saudi Arabia is like one of our key partners. Whenever Pakistan needs oil, whenever Pakistan needs investment, whenever Pakistan needs to shore up its foreign resources, that's where the GCC countries have basically supported Pakistan. Now we need to move away from this dependency and develop a dependency that's like more export oriented and more economically beneficial for Pakistan as well. We already have good relations, as you mentioned, but I don't think Pakistan is taking advantage of those good relations in the potential that it can.
Right, but this is a historic agreement that when we talk about its potential to change the economic landscape of Pakistan. Can you briefly tell us about the future it holds for Pakistan, and what are some of the next steps that Pakistan should be doing to address the potential challenges that we may be dealing with?
Well, first of all, we need to break this vicious cycle in which we import fossil fuels or which we import our oils, and then we consume it to for non-consumptive or non-productive way. We provide these imported, or I would say earned from dollar imported fuels to the residential sector, and they consume it for the non-productive way. This is the I would say a vicious cycle. We need to break it as well. We need to have Middle East investments or Middle Eastern imports coming into our industrial sector, so that our industrial sector is strong enough and it can export those commodities to the Middle East, so that we are earning exports, and we are earning foreign exchange reserves, so that this vicious cycle of exports, non-productive consumption, and then imports, and then so on and so forth, the trade deficit. So we need to have these investments and exports coming into our industrial sector. So that industrial sector could grow and it could get diversified products, and we then export it to Middle Eastern countries, and we can offset the imports from Middle Eastern countries with the exports from Pakistan.
Of course,
so that
of course.
the trade
Basically,
export-led
strategy.
growth. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Wali,
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Shehjar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. San Javed, for joining us in today's program. Of course, in today's program, we discussed about the historic agreement between Pakistan, FTA agreement between Pakistan and GCC countries. It has huge potential, but there are challenges as well. We need to address these challenges. Of course, this is going to give Pakistan a level playing field when we talk about this region and economic ties of Pakistan between with the GCC countries as well. Of course, this FTA agreement, after its implementation, has potential to change game of the region as well, and Pakistan's economic growth, to enhance its economic growth as well. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.